Pogo the Clown, otherwise known as John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy is a serial killer who dressed up as a clown to lure his victims, murdering 33 boys and young men in 1970s. But who is John Wayne Gacy? Gacy was born at Edgewater Hospital, Chicago, Illinois on March 17, 1942, the second of 3 children and only one son of John Stanley Gacy and Marion Gacy. His father was an auto repair mechanic and World War I veteran, and his mother was a homemaker. Gacy had an abusive childhood and struggled with his homosexuality. Gacy's father frequently belittled his son, calling him dumb and stupid, and comparing him with his sister. One of Gacy's earliest childhood memories was of his father beating him with a leather belt at the age of 4. The same year, a family friend began to occasionally molest Gacy. Gacy never told his father, from the fear of being blamed for it. You might think Gacy hated his father. You're wrong. In Gacy's own words, my dad drank a lot, and when he drank a lot, he was abusive to my mother and me. But I never swung at him, because I love him, for what he stood for. Gacy's school life. Gacy, a sickly and overweight and uncoordinated child. Gacy was unable to perform at sports or bond with children his own age. During the 4th grade, Gacy began to experience blackouts. He was hospitalized on occasion because of these episodes. Another failed trait in Gacy's father's eyes. His father believed that Gacy was faking his illness, and on multiple occasions, accused Gacy of faking his illness while laying on a hospital bed. Gacy's illness was never diagnosed. Around this time in Gacy's life, he realized he was a attracted man, experienced hatred over sexuality. Gacy's career. Gacy found it too difficult to catch up with what he had missed in school while hospitalized, so he decided to drop out. Despite not graduating from high school, Gacy attended and graduated from the Northwest Business College in Chicago. Gacy did some odd jobs that led him to his wife. In 1964, he met and became engaged to Marilyn Myers, whose father owned 3 KFC restaurants in Waterloo, Iowa. Gacy relocated to help manage the restaurant. Life was seeming good for Gacy. A steady income, a faithful wife, 2 children. What could go wrong? In 1968, Gacy's wife divorced him after he was charged with sexually assaulting one of his male employees. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but was released to good behavior after serving only a fraction of his sentence. But Gacy didn't learn his lesson. Gacy was arrested once again the following year, after another team claimed he lured him into his car and drove him to his house, where Gacy tried to force him into sex. Gacy got no punishment because the boy never showed up for court. To think this event could have helped investigators in the future if he was convicted guilty. After this, Gacy moved back to Chicago, where he started to rebuild his life, contract company, and remarried. He even was involved in local politics and dressed up as a clown for local parties, looking like a changed man for good. That didn't last long. Gacy had a double life as a sexual predator. He committed his first murder in 1972 after luring 16-year-old Timothy McCoy to his house for sex. The next morning, Gacy saw McCoy standing in the bedroom doorway with a knife and rushed to attack them, wrestling the knife away and stabbing McCoy to death. Afterwards, Gacy realized that McCoy wasn't attacking or threatening Gacy, but rather was holding a knife because he had just made them breakfast. Nevertheless, Gacy discovered he received sexual gratification from killing McCoy, and later said that when I realized death was the ultimate thrill, this was just the beginning for Gacy. He lured his victims back to his house, tricked them into being handcuffed or having rope tied around their neck. Afterwards, he would knock them out with chloroform and then raped, tortured, and murdered them. As he was a well-known community figure who sometimes dressed up as a clown to entertain sick children, Gacy crimes went undetected. In the middle of 1970, Gacy said in an interview that this was his cruising year, where he committed most of his murders, burying the bodies under his property. It seemed like Gacy had to figure it all out. He had a beautiful look in the public's eyes. Who would think of him as a serial killer? He even let a 19-year-old victim go after he raped and tortured him. The victim told the police. After the police showing up Gacy's home, Gacy told the police it was consensual sexual slavery. They bought the whole thing and went back home. Gacy killed again next month. There were many times Gacy would have been caught. But how can such a well-known community figure be a bad guy? It looked like Gacy's murder would never be caught until on December 11, 1978, Robert Pice, who was 15 at the time, informed his mother he would be speaking with a contractor. He turned out to be John Wayne Gacy, about a better employment opportunity. He was reportedly missing later that day. The police requested Gacy to show up for questioning. Gacy never showed up because he was getting rid of the body. They had a warrant to search Gacy's household. Authorities discovered several suspicious items, including police badge, a pistol, needles, pornographic films, and items that they later learned to belong to some of Gacy's victims. Gacy claimed he had never had contact with Robert. The police found one piece of evidence that led to finding 33 murdered boys. It was a receipt from Robert at Gacy's house, which made them search the house from top to bottom, finding the crawl space under the house and 33 murdered boys. Gacy confessed everything, leading to his arrest in 1978. Gacy's trial began on February 6, 1980. The arguments were focused on whatever he could be declared insane. Gacy pleaded he had multiple personalities. One was called Bad Jack. Gacy claimed Bad Jack hated homosexuals. Gacy went on trial, pleading not guilty. The court didn't buy it. In March 1980, Gacy is convicted of killing 33 young men and boys, which made him one of the most prolific serial killers in US history. Gacy pleaded his innocence to the very end. He was executed by lethal injection at Stateville Correctional Center on May 10, 1994. Gacy's last words were, "Kiss my ass."